You don't go into a game with a number 1 seed and get a 20-point head start. You've got to come out and play the whole game, and you've got to play really well.
Here we are again, the best time of the year, back with more NCAA tournament breakdowns as 2023 March Madness officially kicks off today with the start of the first round games. I plan on covering the entirety of the tournament with videos focused on some of the best matchups and individual players, while always incorporating some X's and O's, analytics, and a bit of entertainment with the press conference clips. This year, we're in for a treat as there is a bit more parity in the field, with 2 programs receiving number 1 seeds for the first time in Virginia Tech and Indiana. On the other hand, it's no surprise to see the Stanford Cardinal with the number 1 next to their name, but there has been no better team than the defending champs this season, and that is Dawn Staley's South Carolina Gamecocks entering 32-0 and the overall number 1 team in the tournament.
First things first is Norfolk State. And I'm sure they're having a historical year, so we got to take care of business on Friday.
Even with South Carolina leading the nation in a handful of statistical categories, including scoring and rebounding margin, in my opinion, what really separates the Gamecocks from the rest of the field is their depth. Averaging 36 bench points per game, yes, 36. They have 10 players that average over 10 minutes a game, while Zia Cook, their leader in minutes played, sits at right about the 26-minute mark. You're seeing in these clips the multitude of scoring options that Staley can go to at any point with confidence. The size and physicality of Camila Cardoza and Bree Beal, along with pure speed and athleticism from Amihir and Fletcher, are the ultimate complements to the star-studded duo of Cook and Boston that have been on display for the past few years. Staley and her staff's ability to create buy-in top to bottom and see the big picture when it comes to playing time is only going to benefit them down the stretch when rest days are few and far between. Not having to rely on Zia Cook and Aaliyah Boston to play 35 minutes a game throughout conference play is huge because they have plenty of gas left in the tank to tap into when push comes to shove in later rounds deeper in the tournament. We'll be covering the Gamecocks in much more detail as we get further into the tournament, but aside from their depth, I wanted to briefly touch on their defensive dominance when it comes to protecting the paint. They average 9 block shots per game. Yes, 9. To really paint the picture for you, that basically means that 20% of South Carolina's defensive possessions end in someone on their team blocking a shot. Getting shots at the rim is not going to be easy against their length, so if any team is going to give them a fighting chance of defeating South Carolina, they better be ready to knock down some threes.
We had to win because of how we lost the year before, but this year they've learned how to win and how to, how to carry carry that pressure each and every game.
I think the parity, I think is so great for women's basketball.
The parity that Terry Morin's referring to is having Virginia Tech and Indiana as first-time number 1 seeds in the tournament. 1 year removed from a Sweet 16 run and an appearance in the Elite 8 in 2020 to 2021, Morin has developed a culture of winning done the right way. Women's basketball matters in Indiana, and a Final Four run is certainly in the cards for the Hoosiers, who are an experienced group led by National Player of the Year nominee Mackenzie Holmes and the silent assassin, as I like to refer to her as, Grace Berger. Young post players, Holmes is a must-watch. Listed at 6'3", her ability to finesse her way around and not through defenders is what is most impressive. She does her work early by stealing before the catch, so she's already created the advantage by the time she receives the pass. You see the side out of bounds set here that clears out the weak side by bringing everyone to the ball side in an overload formation. This leaves a direct entry to Holmes on the inbounds pass with no help on the back side, and by the time the defender at the top of the floor drops to try and make a play, it's too late. Here's her field goal percentage by region for the season. She's shooting over 82% at the rim. The supporting cast is what often separates the good teams from the great ones, but Holmes and Berger know what's at stake, and according to Morin, are always doing the unrequired work.
No one has worked harder or as hard. I got Grace Berger here as well, as these two have on their game. One of the things about being a part of our program is we always talk about, you have to do more than what is required. And these two have been so great in just helping us with the culture that we've created here.
Talent alone is never enough. You don't get a fadeaway like this without repping it out for hours upon hours in the gym. So I'm just going to let these clips run.
Berger, bucket.
All right, one more thing I wanted to touch on with Indiana and Grace Berger is their deep wing pick and roll. You see this a ton of times in the NBA now. Right out of transition, Berger running the point guard spot this year will come right up either the left side or the right side and bring that ball free throw line extended, sometimes even lower, set up the screen so that it's 1 or 2 dribbles and she's at that elbow already for her patented pull-up jumper. In this clip, the on-ball defender tries to jump the screen, so she gives a nice little push cross, gets 1 dribble baseline, again, for a pull-up jumper that is her staple shot. It's a simple but really hard action to defend because of the location. If you try and go under that screen that deep, Berger's going to knock it down 8 out of 10 times. In this instance here, the corner's filled, so Caitlin Clark is technically responsible for tagging Mackenzie Holmes on the roll. She's a second late, and Berger sees a slither of an opening and dimes that thing. The connection between Holmes and Berger is on point, and I can't wait to see more of it. All right, the final thing we'll touch on with Indiana is their blurs and ghost screens, all with the purpose of trying to get the driver downhill. In order to create some indecision, you see 2 people blur or rub, whatever you want to call your terminology, in order to get Grace Berger downhill to her right hand so she can either get to the rim or get to the pull-up jumper. All of these screens are just trying to cause some sort of confusion, some sort of path or obstacle for the defender to have to get through so they can't cut Berger off. The ghost screen, on the other hand, I've noticed them use a ton for Sydney Parrish and Yardengar's zone to create 3-point opportunities for them or, again, to get Grace Berger downhill. So you're seeing here, Sydney Parrish runs into the screen, acts like she's going to set it, and slips out to the 3-point line. That is a ghost. A normal slip, you would be slipping towards the bucket. The ghost gets you back out to the 3-point line. 2 defenders end up with Berger, a simple hook pass to the 3-point line, Sydney Parrish wide open. All right, in this clip that you just saw, the steal from Mackenzie Holmes, Indiana cleverly adds a little ghost screen action to it. So you see the design of this play, box set. They want to get Mackenzie Holmes the ball on the block. Here is the counter. Now instead, they get the ball to Grace Berger. Yardengar's zone comes from the weak side, runs into the screen, ghosts out of it to the 3-point line for a wide open 3. This is a really good job by the coaching staff, adding counters to a set play that they know is going to be scouted going into games. Again, I'm excited to see what they've got in the X's and O's package on the offensive end heading into tournament play.
I knew that we were going to work hard and the sky could be the limit for this program because I felt like it was a sleeping giant and it needed to be awoken. And we were able to get players like Elizabeth Kitley, players like Georgia Amore, kids who are humble and ready to come in and sacrifice like a Taylor Soule and Kayana Traylor and, Kayla King, who can score 33 in a game but doesn't care if she scores 3. She'll just guard Haley Van Lith if you ask her to. And that's a recipe for a team that can go far. And I'm very proud of our kids in the way that they've sacrificed for each other all year long.
All right, you heard from Coach Brooks. He said it. Sacrifice was how they got this number 1 seed. They've got a lot of talent, but they share the ball well. They execute, and more importantly, they shoot a lot of threes. And here are the stats to back it up. You're seeing nearly 40% of their shots are coming from 3-point range, knocking down 35% of those threes. As a result, they don't take a lot of mid-range twos, with the exception of Elizabeth Kitley, their main post threat. At 6'6", Kitley loves to face up and shoot over defenders. Her go-to move is that little transition fadeaway where she takes a dribble, leans back on that left leg, and they're going to just try and keep getting her touches because she's averaging 20 points per game over her last 10. In my opinion, what makes Virginia Tech so scary is their guard play and, again, explosiveness just from the 3-point line alone. Their starting point guard, Georgia Amore, is right up there with Kitley, averaging 18.5 a game. And just like Coach Brooks alluded to, they got a bunch of guys on the roster that can score the ball. And come tournament play, every team, not just Virginia Tech, is going to need that supporting cast to show up. Before we get to our final number 1 seed with the Stanford Cardinal, there is a set that I wanted to touch on from Virginia Tech that I've absolutely loved and that they've executed so well throughout the ACC tournament. Commonly referred to as Spain or stack action, essentially it's a normal ball screen. Instead of having a lift guy or a shake, as the NBA would call it, coming out of the corner, you actually send a guard underneath the screening action to back screen the ball screener. Now, depending on how the defense defends it, because Duke was hedging, there was no one for Georgia Amore to screen because that hedger was already out past the 3-point line. In a normal show coverage where the screener defender is nice and low and in a good position to screen, the guard would back screen her and you'd be looking to throw a lob to the basket from the point guard to the big. Because Duke was hedging, Amor didn't need to screen. All she had to do was run up to the screen and slip out of it early, putting her defender in a tough spot because now her defender is watching her run to the three-point line and the roller of the ball screen coming straight at her, leaving her in a bind of which person to take. In this instance, Duke tries to switch the action and you can see the guard pointing at her big to recover to the three-point line, but there's just too much indecision, resulting in 3 points for a confident shooter like Georgia Amor.
The experience that these three women have up here is just, not very many teams have that, winning a national championship.
Alright, you heard it from the GOAT herself. Tara Vanderveer was not afraid to allude to the fact that her team has been in this position before. Being named the #1 seed for the 3rd year in a row, players like Cameron Brink and Haley Jones know exactly what it takes to get to a Final Four, but more importantly, win a national championship. There's no substitute for experience, but Stanford has not played its best basketball heading into the big dance. Losing 2 of its last 3 games, I am confident the Cardinal will get back on track quickly. Having multiple players with great length at the post position has made it a nightmare for opposing teams to score around the basket. The Cardinal are holding opponents to 38% shooting in the paint and just over 20 paint points per game. Something that might not seem like a huge deal or stand out when you're just watching Stanford play is the fact that they do an excellent job not fouling. With all of the block shots that they accumulate, you'd think that they would get caught committing a ton of bad fouls, but they seem to have a really good sense of when to just go straight up and show their hands. It's hard enough to score over the outstretched arms of a player like Cameron Brink, so verticality is something I guarantee the coaching staff preaches and is willing to live with a couple of tough made layups, again, over outstretched arms, like you're seeing in these last 2 clips here. Having the understanding of what you're willing to live with on the defensive end of the floor as a coach is so important, and making sure that your team knows, understands, and can execute exactly that philosophy is crucial, as it's going to influence your coverages, your tendencies from game to game, but you've got to understand that you can't stop everything, and you've got to realize what you're willing to live with, what shots you're okay giving up. These last few clips are showing how the size is also translating to the offensive end of the floor, where Stanford is dominating the paint and they're rebounding 40% of their missed shots. 40% of their missed shots generate an extra possession and another scoring opportunity. Here's Tara Vanderveer on prepping for the NCAA tournament.
You don't go into a game with a #1 seed and get a 20-point head start. You've got to come out and play the whole game, and you've got to play really well. And our team understands that. We want to build on the good things and the confidence that we have, and just focus on one game and playing the best we can.
All right, the last thing I want to touch on, X's and O's wise, in this video is Haley Jones in the pick and roll as the pick and roll ball handler. As you're watching these 2 clips, just compare the 2 different shots that Haley Jones takes, right? First clip, you saw she gets all the way to the rim, right-hand layup. Second clip, she can't get all the way to the rim, stops for an elbow pull-up jumper going right. Synergy Sports has Jones rated excellent in scoring out of the pick and roll. The majority of teams have decided to slide under Jones, baiting her into more mid-range twos off the dribble. You're seeing here the differences in the amount of times that she goes to that dribble jumper or goes to the basket from a middle pick and roll. The dribble jumper is significantly higher, almost twice the amount of times that she's getting to the rim. Teams are sliding under that ball screen and again, trying to bait her into that mid-range two, which from an analytical standpoint is less valuable than layups and open threes. When defenders slide under ball screens, one of the most common ways to combat that is to turn and re-screen. So you saw there, Fran Belibi realizes that Haley Jones' defender slides under the screen, so she pivots, turns, and re-screens. So now Haley Jones is using the screen below the free throw line. Remember back to Indiana's deep pick and roll earlier in the video. So it's much more difficult to slide under that second screening action because it's so close to the basket. In this clip, Jones still ends up getting baited into that pull-up jump shot, but it's way deeper in the paint, a higher efficiency shot for her, closer to the basket. You can guarantee that Coach Vanderveer and the staff will have some additional counters and tweaks to make it more difficult for teams to just slide under ball screens with Jones. That's a wrap on the #1 seeds breakdown. Plenty more videos to come throughout the tournament, trying to bang them out as fast as I can. Obviously trying to keep the quality. Let me know who you guys got in your brackets to win it all and what kind of breakdowns you want to see next. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.